When he was 33 years old, near the end of his boxing career, in an interview before his third and final fight with Joe Frazier, a fight that was called, who knows? The Thrilla in Manila. Very good. A journalist asked Ali if he thought he'd be remembered as the greatest boxer of all time. He answered, "I'll tell you how I'd like to be remembered. As a black man who won the heavyweight title and who was humorous and who treated everyone right. As a man who never looked down on those who looked up to him and who helped as many of his people as he could, financially and also in their fight for freedom, justice, and equality. As a man who wouldn't hurt his people's dignity by doing anything that would embarrass them. As a man who tried to unite his people through the faith of Islam that he found when he listened to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And if all that's asking too much, then I guess I'd settle for being remembered as a great boxing champion who became a preacher and a champion of his people. I wouldn't even mind if folks forgot how pretty I was." Well, Mr. Ali, I'm here this morning to say that we'll never forget how pretty you were. And the world won't forget your poetry or your punches. We won't forget your skill or your speed, your brilliance or your bravado, your fancy footwork, your confidence, your charisma, or your courage. Now, it's probably safe to say that none of us will ever achieve the fame of Muhammad Ali or have the opportunity to impact so many lives, but the question is still a good one for all of us to consider. The question of how we would like to be remembered. So I ask you this morning, how would you like to be remembered? We may make a million tiny decisions each and every day, what to wear, what to eat, what to say, and what not to say, whether to use Google Maps or MapQuest to get where we're going. But in the course of a lifetime, we also make certain more significant choices that actually determine the direction of our lives. Choices that form and reform or not, our character. Muhammad Ali's life was full of such moments, and each choice he made opens a window for us to see through to what's possible for each of us and for all of humanity. Especially this morning, after the violent deaths of 20 or more people at a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, it's important to remember what's possible when love conquers fear. He made a first significant choice when he was 12 years old. Someone had stolen his red Schwinn bicycle, a Christmas present from his father. The year was 1954. He wanted to fill out a police report, so he went to find someone who could help him. And he found Officer Martin at the Columbia Gym, a local recreation center in Louisville, Kentucky, his hometown. When Martin asked him his name, he not only told him it was Cassius Clay, he went on to boast about how he's going to find and whoop whoever had taken his bike. Martin suggested he learn to fight first, if he planned on whooping anyone. And after Cassius had written out the report, Martin gave him an application just in case he wanted to join the gym. Martin, a local cop, was not a professional trainer, but he had worked for years with amateurs and had also been instrumental in integrating Louisville's amateur boxing scene, combining separate gyms for black and white fighters. The boy had never worn a pair of boxing gloves, but was excited about trying this sport. When I got to the gym, Ali said, I was so eager I jumped into the ring with some older boxer and began throwing wild punches. In a minute, my nose started bleeding. My mouth was hurt. My head was dizzy. Finally, someone mercifully pulled me out of the ring. But of course, he kept coming back for more. And at that time, Louisville amateur fighters, some from Martin's gym, appeared on a weekly televised boxing show called Tomorrow's Champions. Martin saw potential in Cassius right away, and it wasn't long before he got him on the show. They matched me with a white fighter, Ronnie O'Keefe, and I won my first fight by a split decision. All of a sudden, I had a new life. He sparred with his brother at home and kept on winning in the ring. But no matter how much he won, he had to live within the limitations of life in Kentucky in the late 1950s, and with the realities of race in America at that time. Just 1 year later, when Cassius was 13 years old, Emmett Till, who was only 14 years old, was brutally beaten and murdered for speaking to a white female cashier at a grocery store in Mississippi. Clay saw the before and after photos of Emmett, and they haunted him. He saw one of a boy his age laughing and smiling, and he saw another one of the same boy with a battered face, eyes bulging out of its sockets. He said, "I used to lay awake scared, thinking about somebody getting cut up or being lynched." Despite his fears, or perhaps because of them, he kept on fighting, and he kept on winning. He boxed 108 fights as an amateur throughout his high school years, winning 100 matches and losing only 8. And in 1960, at the age of 18, he was chosen for the Olympic team and flew to Rome, Italy, for the United States, where he won the gold. Then 3 days after he got back home, he went downtown to eat, thinking, surely they would have to serve him now that he was a national hero. But when he ordered a cup of coffee, the waitress hesitated. Then she called over the manager, and they whispered in each other's ears. The manager turned to the gold medal winner and told him they didn't serve Negroes. There he was, in a country for which his father and grandfather had fought, in the town where he had grown up attending the local Baptist church, where both his parents worked and paid their taxes, and the proud, young, beautiful gold medal winner was refused a cup of coffee because of the color of his skin. Somehow, he turned the pain of that and other experiences into a purpose. Somehow he took the sting of his disappointment and turned it into determination. A determination to be a new kind of black man in the United States of America. A new kind of black man, not only in sports, but also in religion and also in politics. He emerged from the segregated South with a determination to care more about what black people thought of him than about what white people did. He knew boxing in the United States had its roots in slavery. He knew its appeal relied heavily on the spectacle of strong black men being made to fight each other for the amusement of mostly white men and some women. He knew the greats before him, Jack Armstrong, Floyd Patterson, Joe Louis, and others, had deferred to white sensibilities in order to be accepted by the white establishment, including the white journalists who covered the fights. When advised by the same white men to be a credit to his race and to be a good Negro, Clay simply refused. He played the game, but he made up his own rules. Having been raised in a middle-class black family by a father who felt he had been prevented from having a career as an artist because of his race, and raised by a light-skinned mother who cleaned white people's houses for a living, it's not too surprising that he was interested in the proud rhetoric of the Nation of Islam when he was first exposed to it during his high school years. We know he learned about the nation in high school, probably in Chicago, where he went for several fights and where Nicole also saw him, because his teacher back home wouldn't allow him to write his senior paper on the topic of the Nation of Islam. In fact, he kept his faith a secret until he won the heavyweight title, knowing that it would probably get him thrown out of most fights, especially the big ones. But when he won the heavyweight title 4 years later at age 22, against Joe Frazier, he finally came out, and he began to talk openly about his faith and his values. He left the Christianity of his childhood behind. He publicly declared his affiliation with the Nation of Islam, and he changed his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammed Ali. Muhammed Ali, which means beloved by God. He would not be the white man's Negro. He would not be anything of the white man's at all, wrote Joyce Carol Oates for the New York Times this past week. He was a man way ahead of his time in so many ways. He was a forerunner in advance of the Black Power movement. He was a forerunner in advance of the draft resistance movement. He was a forerunner way in advance of the interfaith movement, which is blossoming today. Some of you may have watched parts of the live stream service on Friday where he was eulogized in a huge sports arena by a priest, an imam, a rabbi, a monk, a Native American healer, a former president, and a famous comedian. He knew long before most of us that we are one human family, and he dared to take his place in that family. And he knew that any words or actions or philosophies or political positions that contradict that fundamental reality are dangerous lies and nothing more. And he wasn't afraid to say it or debate it or rhyme it or pontificate about it. So in Ali's own words, we all have the same God, we just serve him differently. Rivers, lakes, ponds, streams, oceans all have different names, but they all contain water. So do religions have different names, and they all contain truth expressed in different ways, forms, and times. It doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jew. When you believe in God, you should believe that all people are part of one family. If you love God, you can't love only some of his children. Could have been a Unitarian minister. It was his faith and his commitment to his core values that gave him the strength and the courage to refuse to be drafted to fight in the Vietnam War, risking everything, his title, his career, and his reputation. Again, in his own words, the real enemy of my people is right here. I will not disgrace my religion, my people, or myself by becoming a tool to enslave those who are fighting for their own justice, their own freedom, and their own equality. If I thought the war was going to bring freedom and equality to 22 million people, they wouldn't have to draft me. I'd join tomorrow. But I either have to obey the laws of the land or the laws of Allah. I have nothing to lose for standing up for my beliefs. So I'll go to jail. We've been in jail for 400 years. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, fined $10,000, and his boxing license was revoked. Although he never had to do time in prison, the State Department did take away his passport so that he couldn't fight outside the country either. Where the young boxer had once been cheered, now he was booed. And still he stood his ground. There was enormous backlash. The New York and the LA Times continued to use the name Cassius Clay in print, even though Ali called it time and time again his slave name. For those of you who have just watched the new Roots on the History Channel, and if you haven't yet, you still can, you may have experienced the same aha moment or epiphany that many people did when it first came out back in 1977, watching a scene in which Kunta Kinte is whipped for refusing to repeat his new Christian name given to him by his white owner. A grandson of slaves himself, Ali refused in all dimensions of his life, professional, political, and personal, to bend or bow, to confirm or conform to the evils of racism. He made of himself a new man. No matter what challenge he faced, no matter what opponent he feared, all the way to the very end. He even faced head-on, near the end, the fear of being perceived as weak, old, and infirm in a culture that reveres strength and youth and beauty. When he was first asked to be the face of and spokesperson for Parkinson's disease, something he suffered with for the last 30 years of his life, he said, "No, hell no." But in time, he understood the good he could do. So with his characteristic courage, he remade himself again, this time as a trembling and humble damaged man with infinite dignity, teaching us not only about this dis-ease, but still and always about the dis-ease we all should feel when one person is treated as less important than another, for whatever reason. "I am America," he once said. "I am the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. Black, confident, cocky. My name, not yours. My religion, not yours. My goals, my own. Get used to me." We are America too. You and I. We who make up this inclusive religious community in Tulsa, Oklahoma today. We are gay and straight, Christian and not, brown and black and white, with infinite shades of color and courage among us. I witness your courage every day, and I want to share just one recent example. Just this past Friday, I attended a court ceremony at the Tulsa County Court with a lesbian couple from our congregation who were formally granted adoption rights of their 2 children in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The presiding judge invited me to say a prayer when the legalities were done, and after both of the children, he had invited both of the children to come up behind the bench and practice saying, "So it is ordered," and hitting the gavel on the bench. And in my prayer, I called on the power of love beyond belief to change realities, large and small. We are America, the part many still won't recognize. So one significant way we can honor Muhammad Ali's life and courage is to proudly be the parts America still won't recognize, as long as it takes, until they get used to us. Because no matter what reality we inherited or feel limited by, we have the power and the potential to be more than what others expect us to be, just like Ali. No matter what kind of social or psychological, economic, or racial reality we were born into, we are being called by his death, and more than that, by his life and his legacy, to become a new kind of community, even a new human race. So I'm asking myself this morning, who would I become if I decided to be a new kind of middle-aged white woman in 2016? And asking you, who would you become if you dared? It's why we're calling this summer the Summer of Living Dangerously. Not because we want you to do something foolish and dangerous, but because we can't help from wondering what kind of new human beings are waiting to emerge from within this community. Just like a real butterfly. Just like a real butterfly that grows from a larva into a caterpillar and then emerges from a cocoon, beautiful and ready to fly, Ali was always ready, always evolving. He moved from being an angry young adolescent into a career-minded teenager, from a rebel to a hero, from a Christian to a Muslim, from being reviled to being revered, from traitor to iconic figure, from scary black man to nation's folk hero. Ali taught us what true courage looks like, and now we can choose to follow his lead or not. It's not that we'll all become beautiful champion boxers or talented rhymers, but we can remember and relish the stories and be lead actors in our city and nation's upcoming seasons of a show I like to call Real Life. So I leave you with one more story to inspire you. And Ali invited his friend Billy Crystal to take a run with him at a prestigious country club. Billy said, "Sorry, I can't accept the invitation. They won't let me in. They don't allow Jews in, and I'm Jewish." Ali was shocked and kind of shouted out, "But I'm black and Muslim, and they let me in." Billy shrugged. Ali never returned to that club again. What will you do next time you witness or hear a racist or homophobic or xenophobic or classist comment? Maybe next time, and we know there will be a next time, maybe next time you'll think of Muhammad Ali, a new kind of black man whose boxing career may have been the least important way he embodied courage. He said it himself. Boxing was nothing. It wasn't important at all. Boxing was just meant as a way to introduce me to the world. So in this summer of living dangerously together, as you consider how you want to be remembered, I leave you with this question. What new kind of man or woman are you determined to be? What kind of new man or woman are you determined to be? And I'll leave the last words for the champ.
What would you like people to think about you when you're done? I like for them to say he took a few cups of love. He took 1 tablespoon of patience, 1 teaspoon of generosity, 1 pint of kindness. He took 1 quart of laughter, 1 pinch of concern, and then he mixed willingness with happiness. He added lots of faith, and he stirred it up well. Then he spread over his span in a lifetime, and he served to each and every deserving person he met. Now, how would I?
We are your church, and we are proud to be your church, or at least a church that's having a positive impact on your life. I am personally blessed to be your minister, or at least a minister who you're allowing to speak into your life. I hope you'll support our ministry and share your love beyond belief by texting LOVE-BB to 41444 or go to our website. But you can just text LOVE-BB to 41444 and make your gift. It's wonderful. Thank you. Be blessed and be a blessing.